His name was Ser Arlan of Pennytree, and I am his legacy. On the morrow, we will show them what his hand has wrought.
Innocence rarely dies in battle. It dies in conversation, not when a sword is drawn, but when a question is asked, not when blood is spilled, but when something quietly rearranges itself inside the mind. Myths do not collapse under force. They erode under information, slowly, almost politely, until what once felt sacred becomes negotiable. Belief is most vulnerable not to violence, but to clarity. In this scene of the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Season 1, Episode 2, this erosion begins for Dunk in a way that feels almost harmless. There is no spectacle, no humiliation, only dialogue, and yet this is the first real death of his innocence. For Dunk, knighthood is not merely a title. It is inheritance, it is identity. It is the memory of Ser Arlan, the hedge knight who raised him, trained him, shaped him. Arlan had no lands, no songs written in his honor, no legacy that traveled beyond the roads he wandered. But inside Dunk's memory, he stands taller than history allows. Because Dunk needs him to. If Ser Arlan was noble, then Dunk's path is legitimate. If Ser Arlan mattered, then Dunk matters. His entire sense of self is built on imagined greatness, not proven achievement, not public recognition, but the quiet certainty of a boy who believed in the man who taught him what knighthood meant. And then Egg begins to ask questions. They are not hostile, they are not even accusatory.
Was he a shit night?
It was not a shit night.
He can't have been a very good one if no one remembers him.
They are small, specific, precise. How many tournaments did Ser Arlan win? Who remembers his deeds? What did he accomplish that the realm still speaks of? Each question lands gently. That gentleness is what makes them destabilizing. There is no aggression to push back against. No insult to resist, only inquiry. Egg's questions function like a scalpel, separating sentiment from substance. Dunk does not answer quickly. There is hesitation where certainty once lived. Silence lingers just a fraction too long. That pause is not ignorance, it is fracture. Because Dunk already knows the truth beneath the questions. There are no trophies to name. No victories that echo beyond his own memory. Ser Arlan's life left no visible imprint on the world. And Dunk has built his identity on that imprint. The destabilization does not come from discovering corruption. It comes from discovering ordinariness. Then another voice enters the exchange, Baelor Breakspear. Baelor does not mock, he does not belittle. He speaks with restraint, with composure. His authority does not need volume. It exists in reputation, in respect, in the quiet understanding that when he speaks, he does so from knowledge rather than ego. When Baelor implies that Ser Arlan was not remarkable, it lands harder than open contempt ever could. If a fool dismissed Arlan, Dunk could ignore it. If a brute mocked him, Dunk could reject it. But Baelor is neither foolish nor cruel. His assessment carries weight, and that weight presses down without theatrics. Authority shifts in that moment. Dunk is no longer defending Arlan against cynicism. He is defending him against credibility. He cannot list accomplishments to counter Baelor. He cannot cite honors. The silence returns. Heavier now, his mind searches for something to hold on to, something that survives scrutiny. And then Dunk says it himself. Ser Arlan was not that great.
Ser Arlan wasn't gifted with sword or lance.
He lowers the myth before anyone else can. This is not surrender, it is strategy. By voicing the criticism first, Dunk attempts to control it. Self-inflicted damage can feel less humiliating than external exposure. If he diminishes Arlan gently, he preserves some agency in the loss. But agency does not soften the impact, because in reducing Arlan, Dunk feels the reduction within himself. If the man who shaped you was ordinary, then what does that make the shape? The conversation remains calm. No one raises their voice, no one presses harder than necessary. And that is what makes it unsettling. This is not a public dismantling, it is a quiet internal collapse. Dunk's understanding of knighthood has always been filtered through one man. Arlan embodied in his mind honor without corruption, courage without arrogance. He was proof that goodness existed within the system. But now that proof is being tested against reality, against what the world remembers. And the world remembers almost nothing. Dunk's hesitation reveals more than doubt about Arlan's record. It reveals instability in his own foundation.
He drank, and he whored.
If knighthood is measured by renown, Arlan failed. If it is measured by visible achievement, Arlan left no evidence, so what remains? At this moment, Dunk does not yet have an answer. He is suspended between nostalgia and recognition, between the story he inherited and the silence history offers in return. In that suspension, innocence thins, not because Arlan is exposed as dishonorable, not because Dunk is ridiculed, but because belief, once unquestioned, has now been forced to justify itself and cannot do so easily. The death of innocence is rarely dramatic. Sometimes it sounds like a man hesitating before defending the person he loved most. Sometimes it feels like the quiet realization that the legend you built your identity around exists nowhere outside your own memory. And in that realization, something essential fractures. Not destroyed, not yet rebuilt. Just fractured, silence lingers after belief fractures. There is a peculiar emptiness that follows disillusionment, not loud enough to feel tragic, not sharp enough to feel like betrayal. Just a hollow space where certainty once stood. Dunk sits inside that space. If Ser Arlan was not remembered, if he was not celebrated, if his name carried no weight beyond a few fading recollections, then what has Dunk inherited? For a moment, there is nothing to defend. No victories to list, no banners to point toward. The language of achievement has abandoned him, and so he shifts the language entirely.
But he was good to me.
He raised me good. The sentence sounds simple, almost childlike, but it is not sentiment. It is philosophy. In that moment, Dunk redefines legacy. He stops trying to prove that Ser Arlan mattered to the realm and begins asserting that Ser Arlan mattered to him. The arena of worth shrinks from public recognition to private transformation, from tournaments and titles to the shaping of a boy into a man. This is not denial of reality. It is a rejection of its criteria. Psychologically, something significant happens here. When external validation collapses, identity can dissolve with it. Many men build themselves on reputation, borrowed or anticipated. When the world does not confirm the myths, they unravel. Dunk does not unravel. He abandons the metric. If greatness cannot be measured by applause, then it will be measured by influence. If history refuses to remember Ser Arlan, Dunk will remember him differently, not as a failed knight, but as a successful teacher. He was an honorable man.
He raised me to be an honorable man.
Notice the softness of it. There is no volume behind the claim. No defensive edge, no attempt to persuade. The certainty is quieter now, because it is no longer dependent on argument. Conviction has shifted inward. It does not need witnesses. Earlier, Dunk hesitated because he lacked evidence. Now he speaks without hesitation because the evidence has changed. Honor is not a trophy. It does not require spectators. It requires consistency. In redefining Arlan's worth, Dunk also redefines his own purpose. He no longer wants to be a knight to achieve glory. Glory has proven unreliable. Recognition is fragile. Memory is selective. Instead, he wants to be a knight in order to validate the man who trained him.
His name was Ser Arlan of Pennytree, and I am his legacy. On the morrow, we will show them what his hand has wrought.
This is no longer ambition, it is defense. If Ser Arlan's life left no mark on history, then Dunk himself will become the mark. His conduct will serve as retroactive proof. His courage will function as evidence. His restraint, his mercy, his choices, these will testify to the quality of the teacher. Knighthood stops being a ladder to climb and becomes a standard to uphold. There is a difference between institutional knighthood and lived knighthood. The institution concerns titles, ceremony, public acknowledgement. It thrives on visibility, it rewards spectacle. Lived knighthood exists in obscurity. It is not announced, it is practiced. Dunk begins to understand that these two versions rarely align. The system may overlook honorable men. It may elevate ruthless ones. It may remember victors and forget teachers. But the existence of corruption does not invalidate the principle of virtue. It only makes its practice rarer. This is the ideological shift unfolding beneath the dialogue. Reputation versus integrity, history versus influence, recognition versus inheritance. Egg represents a world that measures worth by record. Baelor represents a world that evaluates men by visible impact. Both are operating within the logic of institutions. Dunk steps outside that logic. He chooses inheritance, not the inheritance of lands or titles, but of character. Ser Arlan's greatest achievement was not a tournament victory. It was the shaping of Dunk's conscience, the discipline, the restraint, the insistence that strength must answer to something higher than pride. When Dunk decides to keep fighting, despite the dismantling of the myth, he demonstrates this philosophy rather than arguing for it. He does not retreat in embarrassment. He does not abandon knighthood in bitterness. He continues, but the motivation has changed. He is no longer chasing recognition. He is protecting meaning. There is something quietly defiant about that choice. In a world where power often belongs to the loudest and the most ruthless, choosing to act honorably without promise of reward becomes a form of resistance. Goodness in such systems does not survive because it is celebrated. It survives because someone carries it forward despite neglect. Dunk understands, perhaps without articulating it, that if he walks away now, Ser Arlan truly disappears. Not from history, he was never firmly there, but from continuity. The chain would break, so he refuses to let it break. This is how moral inheritance works. It is not secured by monuments. It is secured by imitation, by repetition, by one life shaping another, which shapes another still. Greatness, then, is not measured by how many remember your name. It is measured by who you shape when belief collapses, by what remains standing after reputation falls away. Dunk stands not as proof that Ser Arlan was famous, but as proof that he was formative. And perhaps that is a different kind of greatness entirely, quieter, less visible but more enduring. If this kind of deep analysis resonates with you, then like the video and subscribe the channel. There are many more quiet collapses worth examining. I will see you in the next one.